Hey everyone, it's Dylan and Charlie from the Black Forest Wood Company, and this week we're going to be showing you the process of this 6-foot round sycamore burl dining table with solid white resin that we've paired with a blackened ash and blackened steel base. And we don't do white that often, so let us know what you guys think of this white color, and I hope you enjoy the video. So the table base for this is a large pedestal base. We're doing a blackened ash cylinder that's going to support the table, and then on the bottom of that cylinder we're going to have a 1-inch thick steel plate. So as opposed to doing one big stack lamination and making this cylinder completely solid, we're gluing up an octagon with 3-inch thick material here. So we used our CNC to cut all of the angles on here, and then we've actually put a few biscuits in, as you guys can see. Those are mostly just for alignment. They're not so much going to add strength to this. The Tight Bond 3 is going to give most of that strength on its own, but the biscuits just make it a lot easier when we go to put it together. So we've got everything set up, and we're going to be putting the final piece in, and then we've actually got a filler block that's going to go at the top and the bottom. And the only reason for that filler block is just so we have something to actually grab it on the lathe, because we're going to be turning this around after. As you can see, we've got one end of this big glue up being held by the chuck, and then we've just got the spur drive going in on the other end of this piece. And John, I believe he's just taking a grinder right now to any of the sharp edges so that when he goes to turn this, it's not going to be banging on the tool, because this is, quite a large piece to be turning on the lathe, so maybe a little bit sketchy, but we do have a nice big one-way lathe, so we can do this somewhat safely. Unfortunately, we didn't get too much in terms of content from Jekko for the finishing of this piece. It did end up getting a sprayed polyurethane. So there's a little clip of the bottom. Here's another clip of the bottom where they're just taping everything off before they're going to flip it to do the top side. But unfortunately, we missed that part. Okay, well, we've got this table pretty much ready to ship out to the client now. One thing I didn't mention, this is actually going to get used as a restaurant table. So there's very little UV exposure in the environment this piece is going to go in. It's actually like in the basement of a restaurant. So zero sunlight is ever going to hit it, which is why we felt comfortable using the white pigment in the resin. Typically, if there was any kind of environment like we're kind of in right now where it's getting direct sunlight, We wouldn't recommend this because it's not going to go yellow instantly, and it's not going to go like an obvious color of yellow, but it won't be quite as brilliant of white, and it might take 5 to 10 years, but we build our tables to last longer than that. So we only recommend this in low UV exposure, but in this case, it's perfect for it. The whole team really loves how this piece came out. We're super stoked, and we can't wait to hear what the client thinks. And again, we want to know what you guys have to say about this piece. Let us know also what this table reminds you of. Jekko, the people who finished it, they said it reminded them of a cowhide. They were calling it the Cowhide Table. So let us know what comes to mind when you see this table. Okay, so we did the shoe last week, and there was a lot of different comments we got about it. The first one that was actually kind of a surprise to us because we didn't notice it until you guys pointed it out. The Nike Air logo on the tongue, the white dye actually bled out of it. So if you look closely, you can still see it. So for those of you that were saying, you know, people are going to think it's fake, you can tell it was there. But the resin has obviously kind of broken down and dissolved the dye that was there. And that's what we were experiencing in some of the tests that we did do for this. But it was more so happening with the laces. So we didn't expect it to happen in the tongue. And the other comment we saw a lot was that we should have done more tests and we should have sealed the pieces prior to doing the pour. So we actually did do a whole bunch of tests, and we're going to show you that next and show you why we decided to just do nothing to this shoe. Here's our 3 failures we had to get to this place. This was the first one. Yeah, this was the first one, and I had the idea of sealing the shoe before casting the shoe, and the sealing failed horrendously. It leaked black dye all over the sole of the shoe. But there wasn't very many bubbles. There was a few, but not very many, but that was still a fail. So that's try 1, failed. Also I should mention, they look really yellow because we used old crappy resin for the base layer. You can see the base layer is super yellow, so that's kind of reflecting into the whole piece. Our resin is not that yellow. It's just because of that crappy base layer. This was attempt number 2, and I decided to do nothing, literally nothing to the shoe, and there's no bubbles. This was the clearest pour we did, but there was some bleed out from the laces. You can see that black wispiness that kind of looks like smoke in there. So I wasn't happy with that either. So that would be another fail, 2 fails. So then number 3, I thought, okay, this one here that I sealed with epoxy, I did that by rubbing it all on, and it made it drain down. So I figured that if we just sprayed the shoe with a polyurethane, it should work a lot better. So that's what we did here. Even though it's a black sole, you can see there was none of the darker black dye that got on it, but it was a huge mess with bubbles. I have no idea why the polyurethane reacted so poorly with the epoxy, but this was our 3rd test, and it was actually the worst out of all of them. So after seeing these 3 failures, we kind of just decided that this one here was the best result, doing nothing to the shoe. And thankfully, when it came to the $50,000 shoe, it went even better than our test. So there was a lot of trial and error, but that's how we got there.
And these were all really expensive test pieces.
Yes, yeah. I don't know if you guys have heard of the shoe brand before, George. Really hard to get a hold of, really rare. And then we also had Mex. You've probably never even heard of it. It's so exclusive. Yeah, it really, we spent a lot of money on these tests. Right, Charlie? So thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next week.